Welcome to another episode of Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks. It is with such delight, week after week, we talk about what is Goldilocks teaching us and why do we need to have the conversation of how to unleash your inner Goldilocks. Think for a moment the bookends of our lives. What makes our life possible? On one end of the spectrum is our emotional resilience, and the other end of the spectrum is our financial resilience. When these bookends are set up right, we have the bandwidth, wherewithal, and the capacity to put everything else in place in the middle, just like very methodically arranging the books and getting the balance of our life right. Goldilocks is teaching us how to show up. Don't show up too hot. Don't show up too cold. Don't show up too hard. Don't show up too soft. How do you come from that centeredness, understanding who you are, what you need to thrive, and what you already have inside of you to draw from within to accomplish that balance? My clients and my community knows that I have dedicated my career to getting these bookends just right. And today, especially having the conversation with me, is my business partner who is helping and partnering with me to bring the financial bookend, financial resiliency into place so that mothers, fathers, sisters, uncles, aunts, young men and women who are starting careers, adults in their midlife, or even as you think of career transition, because we have more than one chapter in our life. How do you at every stage try to get your financial resiliency just right? How do you course correct so that you're going to be in that path for your own joy, your own peace, your own prosperity? To have this conversation with me is Dominique. Dominique, welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Cassidy. I'm thrilled to be having a conversation with you. We always speak about amazing things, and I'm excited to share.
Thank you. You and I always talk about how we each have the capacity and the potential to be our own God, our goddess of wealth. It's inside of us. So let's start our conversation from there. The energy we bring in, the mindset we bring in about wealth, relationship to wealth, and understanding of money sets up the stage for everything around financial resiliency. Based on your own life journey, Dominique, how did you get there? Because that would be a powerful way to start for our audience to get to know you.
Well, the career that I have chosen to be my last career is my third career. I started out in the art business in the 90s in Silicon Valley, and I I was always around. My parents put me in situations where I was always around a lot of people with wealth. So I learned at a very young age that people are people and that mindset is what makes us different. And so speaking with anybody from the single mom who's struggling to put together $50 at the end of the month to the decamillionaire and beyond who's extremely comfortable around money, everybody has questions about how money works. And I think that when we get really connected to our relationship to money, then we can actually change our relationship to money. But unless we understand how we feel, we really are blind to our own habits and ways of being.
That is very, very true. And most of the time, we inherit our relationship to money from our upbringing, our childhood traumas, a lot of times, directly or indirectly, is wrapped around money and material and ability to eat or do the things we want to do. How have you seen people who have that financial trauma coming from childhood change their mindset to understand that wealth is not just money? Wealth is so much more than money.
Excuse me. The first step to any change is realizing that our beliefs are thoughts that we think over and over again. And so the first step that I take with people is a conversation, is literally just a conversation about everything that has to do with who they see themselves as. Now, isn't it interesting in first world culture? It's very traditional to say, "What do you do?" And for that person to take that as what I do for a living, how I make money. The identity is so tied up with like how I make a living, how much money do I make working. And so I think that that's a huge piece right there, that we really don't connect necessarily to who we are being human. We connect to who we do human like things. So the first step I think is observing yourself and really understanding that we're so much more than what we make. We're so much more than what we do. But that's not a necessarily culturally where people's heads are. So one of the big things that I ask people is, what is your relationship to money? Do you feel that money flows to you effortlessly and in a variety of sources? Or do you feel like money's hard? I don't understand money. I hear a lot. I have a love-hate relationship with money. These thoughts that we have, once again, over and over and over again, produce a belief. And so one of the first things that I want to do with somebody is have a conversation.
Mhm. And that is so important because ultimately our belief informs our thinking, then our talking, then our actions, choices, behavior, and then becomes our value, right? So automatically we gravitate towards our belief. And shifting that belief is important. And one of the things you said was how people introduce themselves in the West. If you go to the East, I have friends I've had for more than 30 years. We've never talked about what they do. We never talk about how much money you make. It doesn't matter. When you introduce yourself, you talk about who you are as a being. What you do is something like, do you want fries with that? Right? But it's not the burger. And so the cultural divide truly, in some sense, informs the way we are raised. And some cultures look at relationships and what nature provides and everything around us as wealth. The minute we start looking that as wealth, we start thinking about how do I not just coexist with everything around me, but how do I enhance it to improve my station in life? But if I'm only looking at wealth as money, then I need to do tasks to get that money instead of leveraging relationships, leveraging everything around me. Talk to us a little bit about how, when you make that mindset shift, how you're able to, while you start with money, you're able to shift them towards wealth.
I love that so much. Really, one of the things that you said that I think that if you're a doer, who I am that personality. I'm an action personality. I like to get things, I like to move things through, and I'm that kind of catalyst kind of person, but I'm also not just the catalyst, I'm the person to get things done. And so one of the things that I observe in people is just a lot of talking and making excuse me, making the connection to the behaviors that are aligned with what we say we want is probably the most important thing in anything. If I want to be an Olympian, but I don't get out every day and actually work my body to my actual complete peak performance, I cannot be an Olympian. But if I talk about it, I might be thinking, once again, the belief thing, that I will. That it's fantasy. Same thing with, you hear a lot of people say, I want to be a millionaire, but they're not creating action that's consistent with what that actually means, because words just happen. We also live in a culture where we see things that are manipulated all the time. So you have an entire generation that grew up with a phone in their hand, and they're accessing visual information that doesn't necessarily align with how people might get to that end. So you see a young 21-year-old against a Lamborghini, in some exotic place, in some very prestigious looking location, and we're not connecting to what that actually demands. So I think that that's one of the things that's going to come out of this social media barrage that we've all been living in for the last 15 years or so, and we're going to start to actually have to make the connection to behaviors that connect to our, maybe in our generation we're much more aligned with that, but I work with a lot of young people, and I really see that that's a huge piece of it.
Mm-hmm. And you're so right, Dominic. A lot of young people are preoccupied with get rich quick.
Yeah.
And they think that there is something, there's a secret sauce, and if only they got it. I was on a flight coming back to Belize 2 weeks ago. Every young person around me, they were reading books about how to get rich, different books, but everybody was reading. I met with a young couple of friends of ours recently out of college in their first jobs. They're also reading about how to get rich and how to make money. Nobody is reading about how to build relationships, how to show up in the world in a way that your mindset is bringing people in, building win-win relationships. And it's those anchors that then drive you towards that prosperity. And money comes when you can invest. So I actually had a conversation with a couple of them. I said, when you chase something, you never catch it because they're always behind. What is your plan to get ahead of it? And that whole concept was foreign to them. So, what advice do you have for young people instead of being obsessed and chasing? How do you start being and manifesting?
Oh, I love this. So, one of my favorite concepts. So, the way that we teach people about how money works is that we really look at the whole picture. So, we talk about 7 money milestones. And the first milestone is education. And I'm talking to an educator. So for you, it seems like a no-brainer. But I think that the younger people get in our culture, the farther they get away from academics as a way into education, because they have access to so many things now. So for me, the education is very, very important. But for young people, my favorite thing to talk to them about is the time value of money. I would much rather have 40 years in front of me to build wealth than $40,000, right? Because what when I can get somebody to understand, look, if you are meticulous with a strategy that will build over time, you don't have to do a lot. You really don't. You can utilize compound interest, you can utilize the time value of money, you can utilize your intellect to let that all do the work for you. But the whole idea of get rich quick is also I want it now and instant gratification. So it's not very fulfilling to save a few $100s a month into an account that's going to be there for a long time. It's much more fulfilling to work towards maybe buying a new car or the things that we do when we're young. What I would say is get educated. Get with somebody such as yourself or me who can actually show you what it means to produce the results that you want. And that's really it. It's all about bringing your words and your thoughts into alignment with your actions so that you can end up where you want to end up. And the other thing I love is you can compress timeframes when you actually can observe what that is. If you don't, you're going to get what you get.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As we build on this, Dominique, single mothers, women who just went through divorce and starting life as a older person, having stayed at home, raised a family, have very limited options, and most of them haven't handled money. What advice or tips do you have for them to start thinking about? They still have a life ahead. How do they plan for the future?
Such a good question. In fact, this book behind me, How Money Works for Women, it Take Control or Lose It, right? And the book is it's specifically written for women because women, half the population of the world, have very unique things around money that men don't. Now, here we are in 2024, and can you believe that women still only make 82 cents per dollar for males? That's in the United States, probably North America in general. That is crazy. I remember when I was a kid, it was 72 cents maybe, and it's only gone up a dime. Like, women have to really work so hard to be on par financially with men. And yet, women make 81% of the household money decisions. That's incredible. This book is so good because, first of all, our books are written in fifth grade English with cartoons like a graphic novel. So there's no elitism there. This is purely to educate people so that we can have a real conversation together. But this book goes by decades, starts with a 19-year-old young woman who's thinking about financial aid, taking out a loan at such a young age, and goes all the way through the decades, addresses things like a special needs child and trusts, divorce at 60 when you least expect it, as you were just talking about, the death of a spouse. And maybe the spouse did all the financials. And suddenly, at an advanced age, somebody has to start thinking about, well, I don't know where all of this goes. And so what we want to do is actually help women understand that you have to have a strong backbone and you can still have a soft front. And that as a result of that, you can learn everything you need to get you through all the aspects of life. That's what I would say.
Brilliantly said. I come from a culture where the woman is the head of the household. We're not just princesses, we're raised to be goddesses. And we handle money. The woman in her sari, I'm Sri Lankan, the woman in her sari carries the keys to the house, kitchen, and the vault in which the money is. Okay. And it's on the woman at all times. And when we get married, man moves into our home. We don't get married until we have our home. So I come from a culture of women being so financially resilient and so financially in tune. And daughters are raised to be the head of the household. At 16, I was able to take my siblings to a foreign country without my parents and raise them, sign contracts, pay bills, open bank accounts. You couldn't do that in the West. So coming from that culture with that firm background and having had the wherewithal to get an education, get into fintech, become a CFO in a Fortune 100 company by the time I was 32, all of this was possible because of the belief system, because of the foundation that was laid. I didn't actively seek it, but it was all around me. So what we see and what we experience becomes the window through which we see life. What can we, as professional women who are in this world of finance and financial well-being, because people forget financial wellness is the foundation of all wellness. If I don't have the ability to put roof over the head, then we have to choose which child eats what meal. We can't make other choices. Morality is out the door. What is right for us is out the door because we're on survival mode. How do we create that environment, exposure, lived experience to see what is that going to be like? And how can we be a part of that solution?
I love so much that you, well, first of all, so many things in there that you said. The first thing is the repetition of, your beliefs are the thoughts you think over and over again, and growing up in that environment. I mean, I can't even imagine that. I did not grow up in that environment of empowering young girls at all. That was not my cultural environment. It was a man's world that you had to play a man's game in order to be a part of, um, which served me in certain ways, but also did a disservice to that being aspect that I was talking about in the beginning, and also doing it as a woman, right? And so I think that what you were saying there is so important. The first thing, once again, it all goes back to education, the education in the home, the education in the culture, the education in the workplace. Now, one of the things that I love, so this is my third career. I started off in the art business in the 90s, and once again, working with very, big brains of men. Steve Jobs was a client of mine. I worked with Oracle Corporation, Larry Ellison's company for many years. And I was very accustomed to being in those rooms with C-suite executives, as you are too. And so what that did, along with this idea of people are people, it really made me very comfortable to speak to anybody, which was such a gift to a young woman. I think the first thing is, once you actually understand what rooms you want to be in, work to get in those rooms. But in terms of personal finance, I love what I do now because only 24 states in the United States require even one course in high school in personal finance to graduate. Not even half the states require personal finance. Now, why is that? When you look at the way the system works, the financial institutions don't want us to know the information. Why? Because they exist to make money for their shareholders and for their corporate structure, not for the individual clients. As a result, we really are not educated in how to approach these financial institutions to win the game. I often say walking into a bank is very similar to walking into a casino. The house always wins. So when I understand how it functions, I can choose how to play the game. So this is what we do. We actually want to change the face of the American economy, one family, one individual, one business at a time. Because when people are educated and when they understand what their choices are with finances, they change their behavior because they have new behavior to act out into. I just, and once again, I'm speaking to an educator. So we understand what a difference it makes when the light goes on in somebody's eyes and you've shown them A plus B equals C, and they get it. Because here's the piece, and this is the piece that I want to really emphasize. This is not rocket science. You do not have to have Elon Musk's brain in order to understand how to be a billionaire. What you have to do is you have to choose to put your attention on the thing that you want to achieve, learn it, and execute. So that would be what I would say in answer to your question, Cass.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And what I would love to do is open this up to our live audience if they have any thoughts, questions, so that we can bring them into our conversation. Go ahead, Robin, if you have a quick question.
Yeah, I have a quick question. I have to hop off in just a second. But how are you able to help women make that mind shift that they can have better management skills, and you don't have to be Elon Musk, although on a number of levels I would not want to be Elon Musk. But how do you help women make that mind shift?
Robin, what I love about the way that we teach how money works is it literally is a milestone journey to helping people understand. The first piece is we have to embrace where we are. We have to look at that. And the way that the system is set up, you often have to have a tremendous amount of money to be invited to do that with a financial professional. And in my business, we do not charge for our services. We actually are working in people's best interest because we can't possibly make a recommendation until we understand where people are. So we sit down with everybody, despite what their net worth is, and we go through a financial needs analysis in great detail. And we help people understand budgeting, sometimes for the first time. And then we are able to look at where they are currently. We anticipate where they want to go, the time frame. We factor in things like inflation and rates of return, and then we come back and we give them a plan. And then I'm not being paid for that. I do not have a vested interest in any one brand or any one product or service. And so I can be very much working in the client's best interest to make those recommendations. And from there, we help them to learn.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That's a great answer.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that question, Robin. And I would love to add that when we look at the portfolio, we're helping the whole person, the whole family, and all the decisions and choices ahead of them. So one of the things I love about helping people in this way to build their financial resiliency is I get to bring all the other pieces of me into the conversation as I help, right? So as an educator, I know universities that are in the world, that are accredited in more than one country, that gives you an opportunity to get the right education and to get into the right rooms, to build the right career. But 60 to 70% of the tuition is funded by donors. It's almost run like a charity. You can get a full undergraduate degree for less than $15,000. You can get an entire MBA for less than 15,000 US dollars. You can get a PhD for under $25,000. And it's AI integrated in a way that if your native tongue is not English, you get access to all of this in your own language. And you can get a mentor, somebody who can help guide you, who speaks your own language. So the world has evolved. There are solutions. You don't have to go broke to get an education. You don't have to go broke trying to put your children through education. Same way as you get older. How do I plan for my rainy days? Retirement is not just living expenses. What about healthcare? What about long-term care? What about home healthcare? All of these have financial ramifications. How do we plan for them up front? And the younger we are in planning, the smaller our investment and larger our opportunity to benefit at the back end. And we hope you think through all of that. Look at life as an entire trajectory and plan for it. You don't just plan to buy your Lamborghini. Plan for life, and you can then have the capacity to get the Lamborghini when you feel like it. So I just wanted to add that in before I open it up for Dr. Menon.
Hi. I was really appreciative of this talk because, for one thing, lately in medicine, women are the biggest. Female physicians are opening practices. We're the biggest entrepreneurs in our culture right now, and it's driven because one thing we're not paid as well as men because apparently we're not as productive as men because we don't see as many patients. We take longer because we're more emotionally attached to our patients. We actually talk and find out, and our outcomes are better, but we're not paid because of our outcomes. We're paid because of the number of patients we see and the number of procedures we do. So this was very enlightening for me to see, um, how the change in medicine, is happening because medicine is starting to hear women's needs and they're starting to change practices and change the way they're coming to us to sell their products because they understand our choices are different from our predecessors. Um, the question I had was actually, so during our training, and we're not guided financially at all. And so the first time we get any financial guidance is during our residency, where a financial person comes in and talks to us about all of the things you just talked about, Dr. Cass, of long-term planning and, financial planning and all these things. And we get hooked right when we're in our second or third year of residency. I've come to the point where I'm now a pretty well-established physician, surgeon, and I have some, wealth. But then you start wondering, like, do I have the best financial planner for me? And so my question is kind of like, so how do you guide someone? What advice do you have for someone who wants to figure out, is this person doing right by me? Do I need somebody else? Just for that. Like, do you have any guidance on that?
Dr. Menon, the first thing I would say is I'm deeply disturbed. Once again, another institution that we all take for granted, right? The medical profession, where whenever I'm blessed, thank you so much, with good health. So I'm not somebody who runs to the doctor when I've got a cold. So I go to the doctor for true advice on health issues. So I've always gone to women because of exactly what you said, that you take the time, you care. Oh my goodness. And you get paid less because of it. That is disturbing and new information for me. Now, my response right there is your response in the financial services industry. Am I being truly serviced correctly for me? And I have to tell you, the vast majority of my clients have advisors because most people, and this is statistically true, most people, once they have a guy, because they're mostly men, don't deviate from the guy because the guy is the expert or the woman is the expert. Now, think about this. Is it a conflict of interest when the way I get paid is how much of your money I hold under management? That may be the case because there is not an opportunity to do other things except what's under management. So the first thing I would say to everybody is observe the way your advisor is being paid. There's nothing wrong with being paid. Absolutely. I believe in that. But I want to represent my clients in the best possible way, as neutrally as I can, so that I'm giving the right advice for them. So for your question, if I'm a doctor and I'm a general practitioner, I am not going to talk to somebody with breast cancer I am going to refer them to a specialist. In my industry, I'm not going to be the blanket solution for everything. What I'm going to do is listen to my client, and we're going to look together to see what the objectives they want to achieve are. Then we're going to move back. And then I'm going to make recommendations based on that, not on what I get paid for and how I want to do this. So it's very important, I feel, that people get a second opinion and that they understand what their landscape looks like and what they want to achieve. That would be my approach, and that is my approach, Dr. Menon.
Thank you. I think a lot of us feel guilty when we want a second opinion for some reason with the financial advice, and I don't know why.
But think about medical advice and how important.
Yeah.
So, in some cases, a third and a fourth opinion, correct? I mean, if
Correct.
I had a
Exactly.
very specific medical issue many years ago, and it took 3 or 4 doctors before I got the highest level specialist to be able to solve my problem.
So it's funny, I'm laughing because it's like being a child and saying I can only have one friend, right? Oh, you have a new friend, you're no longer my friend. No, that's not the world we live in. And one of the things we have to consciously do is assess, is this working for me? Is this serving me? And one person can't serve all your needs. And if the person serving you is getting paid based on how much they serve you, they're going to kill you with gluttony. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So you and I talk, right? We're friends. So let's take that opportunity to talk and build, as we have always been talking about.
Yeah.
And then let's look at where do you plug and play. And that's the advice for everybody, right? You don't go to the university and take one professor for your entire program.
I am bursting right now because I want people to see. I hope that there are many other people who are not accomplished surgeons and doctors listening to this, because here is an accomplished, successful woman who is saying out loud, I may or may not feel comfortable getting a second opinion on my finances.
Yeah.
The reason I'm bringing that up isn't to highlight any embarrassment on your part. The reason I'm bringing that up is that I talk to thousands of people, as you do too, in your industry, correct?
Yep.
And so what that does is that experience that I have listening to people, really listening. What are your fears? What are your concerns? What are your desires? One of my favorite things to ask people is, do you know what your dream is? 99.9% of people do not know what their dream is. What do you want? I want to be financially independent. They'll do some broad stroke answer. My point in saying all this is that we are enculturated to have that feeling. We are enculturated to feel like we got the guy, we got the expert, we got the person, and we're locked in. And therefore, it would be an embarrassment to me or that person to get another opinion. But in your field, that's absolutely what people do. So I just want to encourage people to understand that
Right.
it's all your choice. It's all your choice. But the problem culturally is that we don't realize that we've got other places to go, because this is what people do. They lock you in when you're a resident, and then you're there, and then you just go to the end, no matter what the results are.
Yeah. And the other cultural thing is, it's my husband that's been telling me we need to get a second opinion. We need to get a second opinion. So it's the man, and the woman, in you is like, oh my God, but he's been, we know him, we know his family, he's been there for so many years. I think he's done fine. Like, why would I want to? It's like it's kind of like the guilt, like exactly what you said about, asking for that second opinion is somehow saying that he's a bad person, or he's
second guessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Dr.
Yeah.
Menon, also think about the fact that your financial manager is only managing your portfolio. He's not
Exactly.
looking at your entire life and your life plan and the potential things that can happen in life and mitigate for all that risk, right?
Right.
So
Right.
you can't tell a car mechanic you can't say because you have a car mechanic, you can't have a guy come and look at your house, right?
True.
Life
Yeah.
is much larger than the savings that you have somebody managing. And that's one of the things people forget. Money is a commodity, and money is needed for a lot of things in life. And just because somebody is safekeeping and protecting your commodity doesn't mean you forget the entire spectrum of how your life is going to be and
Right.
what all is going to be called upon to use that commodity for, and have you enable that commodity's positioning to serve you through your life. And that's
Correct.
the question most people, 99.9% of the time, people miss. And as an educator in the classroom, as the CFO in the workplace, this is what we are managing for organizations. But for some reason, we don't enlighten people to that same secret sauce, because then they will have control over their life and we can't control them. So my mission
Right.
through this whole thing is to open up that Pandora's box and give people the opportunity to see that entire trajectory. Keep your financial advisor. Nobody is going to say get rid of them, right? But there is more to life than that. You can't eat beans for the
Right.
rest of your life the whole time. You have to layer
Right.
in. Right? What does that layering in look like? What does that risk mitigation look like? Because money can't get you everything if you didn't put other things in place for the money to work best for you. Money making
Right.
interest alone is not enough. So that will be the advice I give. And we are way out of time. And I have absolutely loved this conversation. My partner, Dominique, is always a delight to be around. We talk every week, but I wanted to make sure she's part of our conversation as we kick off 2024. And Dominique, any final word of wisdom as I bring this to a close?
Well, first of all, Dr. Menon, thank you so much, because you really, this is what fires me up. This is why I'm sure you have your things in your day, but what you just said is so important. And thank you for your transparency and your vulnerability. I really appreciate you. Kaz, I love working with you. I love our conversations. They're always of this caliber, and it's so like nourishing to be able to have this level of conversation. And we don't charge for this education. I really encourage you to reach out, have a conversation with us, learn about your own money and how it works. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Dominique. It is a pleasure. To our audience out there, take a moment of an introspective journey of what nourishes you and sustains you. Money is not everything, but your relationship to money is everything. How you relate to money, how you embrace a sense of abundance or scarcity, that is going to determine your destiny in life. So pick up the phone, email us, reach out to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks. We will get you the help you need, because without your financial resiliency, you can't build your emotional resiliency. And when you don't have the bookends, it's hard to make your life work for you in between those bookends. So please unleash your inner Goldilocks, reach out for help, and learn how to get your financial resiliency just right.